In this video, we're going to take a look at how to use Audio2Face to do local inferencing in Unreal 5.6. By local inferencing, we mean that the animation will be generated on the system without the requirement to go with an Audio2Face microservice like in previous version of the Unreal plugin. So specifically, we're going to take a look at the workflow. We're going to see what we need to download, when we need to save the different files and do the initial setup. Then after that, we're going to look at how to set up metahuman and Audio2Face together, see how to trigger animations with Audio2Face, and then I'll give you some iteration tips when you want to adjust the performance of the character to suit your liking. The first part that is important is to download all of the plugins necessary to work in Unreal 5.6. So there are two links that you need to remember. First one is where you download all of the plugins, which is developer.nvidia.com ACE for games. I'll show you where to find this. And then after that, if you have any questions or you want to go deeper into how it works, you can look at the documentation, docs.nvidia.com ACE plugin 2.5, and I'll leave those links here for a second so that you can grab the addresses. But this is how it looks like. So when you land on NVIDIA ACE for games, you can scroll to the bottom until you get to this area here where you see all the plugins. The first one you need is you absolutely need to download the Unreal Engine 5.6 plugin. Of course, if you use a different version, you need to download a different plugin. But in my case here, I'm going to use 5.6, so I need this Audio2Face-3D plugin. This is the first one. Then after that, you need the models. The plugin itself is just kind of the placeholder for the models to be used. So you need to download the latest models. And in my case here, I'm going to use the 3.0 models. They come in three personalities. There's Mark, Claire, and James. If you want to use the previous models, it's version 2.3. But if you want to use the latest, that's 3.0 here. And if you like I said, if you want to go into the documentation, you have the link here to the documentation. But what it looks like, if you jump in, you'll see we'll go through the installation here, but there's some more information about the ACE plugin itself, and then Audio2Face-3D here. You've got a bunch of information, and we're going to go through that through the different parts of this video. So for the initial setup, you only have to do this once, is to make sure that all the files are in the right place. So when you create a new project, you'll be able to use Audio2Face. So in this case here, if you go to where you have Unreal installed, so in my case, it's C, Program Files, Epic Games, Unreal 5.6, I'm using 5.6, Engine, and then you go into the folder Plugins and another folder called Marketplace. If you don't have that folder, just create it, called Marketplace. And inside of that folder, you extract all of the files that you've downloaded. So the ACE reference is the main plugin that we've seen on the page. And then the three models, Claire, James, and Mark, they have their own separate plugins. You place them there. And once you have the plugins in place, you'll be able to create a new project and those plugins will be available. So I'm now ready to launch Unreal. Like I said, 5.6, launch it. So what I'll do is I'll create a new blank project, call that my MH project. And I'll just create a blank project, use Blueprint for desktop, maximum quality, so just the default. So now that we are in Unreal, there's a few things that we need to check. First, I want to make sure that I see the engine content and the plugin content. And the reason is when we're going to have plugins loaded, we want to be able to see some of the assets that come with the plugin. So we want to enable everything that we're going to need for this project. I'm going to go in Plugins here, look for the NVIDIA plugin. NVIDIA, whoops. So you'll see that we have the base plugin. I'm going to enable that. And then we have the three models that are made for local execution. So if you wanted to connect to the Audio2Face microservice, you don't need to enable those three plugins. The old way is you connected to an Audio2Face microservice. It went to the service, generate animation, and send it back. But if you want to generate locally without having to go to the microservice, you need those three local executions. If you only intend to use one model, you can pick the one that you want. So in this case, I'm just going to enable the three so we can play with the three. But in the end, if you just want to work with one, you can enable only the one that you need. Another thing to make sure that we enable is the metahuman plugins. So I'm going to use the core tech and the creator that is going to be directly in Unreal. And that's a new workflow in 5.6, so it's always good to enable that. And then I can restart Unreal. And we're good to go. Make sure that they are enabled. So NVIDIA is enabled and metahuman enable as well. So we're good. Okay, now we're ready to go back to Unreal and start from scratch a new metahuman. So for the sake of it, I'm just going to create a new level, just a basic level, empty level. I'm going to save it as a new map is fine. And we're going to use that as our canvas to start adding. So what's different with 5.6? If I go to the content here, I'm going to right click and I will see that there's now a metahuman menu here. I can create a metahuman character and I'm going to call it my metahuman or just my MH. And what it does now, it just creates the kind of the placeholder for your character. You need to go and open the interface and define it. And to open it, I just double clicked on it. I'm going to maximize the window here. And I'm not going to go super fancy on what I'm going to do in metahuman. I'm just going to go into preset. The goal is not to go through the whole interface. There's a bunch of tutorials out there that will cover this. It's a pretty exciting tool to work with, so I encourage you to play with it. It's fun. I'll just pick the first character or the first preset and just apply it to my current metahuman. And I need to download the texture, so you can choose the resolution you want. I'm just going to go for the quick one, 2K. And when you got the texture, just the textures, just create the full rig. That's going to be important. And once the rig is ready, you can go into assemble. You can choose the resolution you want. So I'm just going to use the complete one. It's going to save in your project, and I'm going to click assemble. So of course, for the purpose of this video, I did speed up the waiting time. You can expect to wait a little bit longer than the video shown here. But it's pretty much done, so I'm going to save this. And we can go back to our level. And it's tempting. You would think that by dragging this asset here into the scene, that would be adding your metahuman to the scene. But you have to go inside of the metahuman folder, inside of the folder that created your metahuman, and this is the blueprint class of your metahuman. That's what you want to add to your scene. So if I drag this into the scene, it's going to add the metahuman. I'm just going to place it at 0, 0, so that it's easy to find. And if I orbit around, I can see that the camera is kind of not looking at it from the front. So I'm just going to move the camera and rotate it so that it's looking at the character. And I'm placing the camera in front of the face so that we can be right, right in front of the face as we jump into editor mode. So if I just go in player mode, sorry. So now we have a good setup. We are ready to start setting up Audio2Face on this metahuman. So the first thing we'll do is we'll select the metahuman in the outliner here. And I'm going to grab the, I'm going to just lower this down a bit. I'm going to select the face. And once the face is selected, we want to go and add, and you're going to look for ACE, and you're going to see ACE audio curve source. You want that to be added to the face. And once this is done, I can select the face again, and you see that we want the face to be animated by an animation blueprint, but right now there's no animation blueprint, so we're going to go and create that. For that, we're going to go inside of face here. And actually, no, that's in the common, in the metahuman common and face. And you'll see that we should have a the face archetype skeleton. If you right click on this, say create and create anim blueprint, that's going to create the animation blueprint for the face of this character. I can call that just face underscore anim BP for blueprint, and I know that this is now a blueprint that I can use for this skeleton. So if I go back to the face here, anim class, I'm going to pick the one that I just created, face anim blueprint, and it's the one that's going to be used for this one. I can now edit it. If I double click on it, we need to make sure that we feed into the output pose the animation data coming from Audio2Face. So we start by adding an input pose. So I'm just going to go for input PO. So input pose. From there, we want to drag out and go in ACE and use the apply ACE animation. And now when we drag out here, we should look for MH underscore AR. So you see here, evaluate pose. That's one of the assets that come with the plugin. So when you look for it, it's going to be there. And what it's doing, it's taking the data that comes in as ARKit blend shape weights, and it maps it to the controls for metahuman. So that's the kind of the mapping tool. If you want, you can go and edit that and change it if you want to. Or if you use a different rig and is a custom rig that you want to map to, and you want to map ARKit blend shape to the rig, this is where the magic happen. You would need to build your own mapping. But in this case here, we just want to use what we've done to map to metahuman from the ARKit blend shape to metahuman. We're good to go. Compile and save this. Our blueprint is ready. We're going to go in a bit further in the video how we can customize all of this and take advantage of some of the tools that are in there. But right now we have the blend shape coming out of A2F fed into the metahuman, and we're ready to start triggering some animations. To trigger Audio2Face animations, there's multiple ways to trigger them. I'm going to show you one way. But essentially what we need to do is to go to on the metahuman actor here and edit the blueprint for this actor. Right now there's nothing being added to the blueprint, so we're starting from scratch. If let's say that we want to create an event, we want to react to an event where the letter, the keyboard letter key T is being pressed. So what we can do here is I can add an event for the keyboard. I'm going to go keyboard. And you see that when you have keyboard events, I'm just going to pick the letter T for talk. And I'm going to go a bit closer. So now we have the letter T, and that's what we're going to use to trigger. The event that we need to trigger is from ACE, Audio2Face, and we have a choice. We can animate a character from a wave, or you can animate from a sound wave async. And basically what it means when you say sound wave, that's a U asset that you've imported from any source that you want. So if you imported an audio asset, that's what you use. And if it's a wave file that's on your drive, you use this one wave file async. It's always better. Well, it's better to use the from wave file if you want to replace that file by for example a text to speech that would generate an audio track. You would save it as this file all the time, and this file would be updated, and then the animation would be different because the audio would be always different. So you point to a single file or multiple files if you want to, but essentially it's on the drive, so that that data can change, and when you animate, it's always going to use the latest audio. So when we want, you see there's a bunch of parameters to think about. The character here, we want to use self, so I'm just going to go and get self. So if you just say self, it says get a reference to self, and I can connect this to self. Then after that, we need to decide which file is going to be used for the audio. I like to promote this as a variable, so and put that into a variable. That's going to be easier to edit from outside of the blueprint later. I do compile this, and then I can use the path. So I do have a file here on my drive. I'm going to right click on it and say copy as path, and then paste that path here. That's going to be my audio to start with. Then you see that we have the emotions parameter. I'm just going to do the same thing, promote it as variable. And when it's a variable, compile to see the interface. So you'll see that here we have a bunch of settings that we can adjust the emotion, the strength, and all of that. And we can play with this a bit later. But right now we know that we have the emotion parameters in place. We need to provide a provider. So the provider, if you just going to go back to this here, we have a if you look at the documentation, you'll see that this is the different chapters of the documentation. If you go and find the changing Audio2Face-3D providers, this is where all the providers are listed. So this is this is it here. all of the local, those are the ones that we want to use. If you want to use a remote or a microservice, those are different. But if you use local, let's say that we want to start with local James. I'm just going to copy this. That's going to be my provider. And I'm going to go back to Unreal. And in the provider here, I'm going to paste that. But instead of doing this, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to promote it as a variable and compile this. And inside of the variable, I'm going to put local A2F James. And now we have the Audio2Face parameters. This is a bit trickier. So what we need to do is we need to create, or actually I'm just going to go into the, it's going to be easier to show. If I go in ACE, Audio2Face, and there's one here for parameters called Create Audio2Face Parameters. I'm going to bring that in. And from there, you can take the return value and go in ACE and Audio2Face. And there's one in parameters, and it's called Set Parameter from Struct. So we can connect that here. And now we are able to create the parameters. So you need to create it and then modify it. So that's kind of strange, but you know, that's the way it works. I'm going to promote this as a variable, the parameter helper, compile that. And you'll see that when if we look at the parameter helper, you will have all of the settings for adjusting the strength, lower face, and all of that. So when T is pressed, we're going to create this Audio2Face parameter. Then we're going to modify it, and we are going to feed the final result into Audio2Face parameters. So that's kind of the basic setup. Now that letter T will not be recognized until you go in the begin play. So I'm going to look for this one, and what you want to do is to look for enable input. I'm going to select this one, and that's what I want to enable. And the player controller, we're going to say get player controller, and we're going to leave it to player index 0. And what's going to happen from there is that when you're going to press the T key, it's going to be trapped, and then it's going to trigger this event. So it's a pretty rigid setup, and we're going to see how we can iterate from that a bit later in the video. But this is the basic setup for getting Audio2Face to work. So I'm going to compile this, save this, and minimize this. And now I can go into player mode. And if I press, I need to touch the screen first to make sure that the camera is being activated. And then if I press the T key.
I am very excited about Audio2Face, facial animation made easy and fun.
If I want to change the model, now we were using James. So if I want to use a different one, let's say I want to use Claire, which is a bit different. I'm just going to say Claire and compile and save this and close. Go back into player mode and press T again.
I am very excited about Audio2Face, facial animation made easy and fun.
So now we're ready to start iterating and kind of figuring out what works best for the character, and that's going to be the last part of this video. In this last part, I want to cover something that is going to give you a bit of flexibility to iterate on the performance of the actor that you're trying to build with your metahuman. So the idea is that every time that you want to make a change, you need to open the blueprint. You want to avoid that. So you want to expose the variables and give yourself a bit of tools to be able to work with metahuman, but outside of the blueprint. So the obvious things that we can do, we're going to start with the path here. It's just providing the path of the audio. Right now, they're all variables that are unexposed, or we don't have the instance editable. So what I'll do here is first I'll say path to wave. I'm going to click on this icon here to make it the instance editable. That means visible outside of the blueprint. And you see that there's a category here. Right now it says default. I'm going to say A2F, enter. And now you see that it's under the A2F category. I'll do the same thing with emotion parameters. Right now it's under the default category. I'm going to just choose A2F. I'm going to make it editable outside, and I'm going to make I'm going to rename it so it's a little bit easier to understand what it is from the exterior outside of the blueprint. I'm going to call that emotions, and do the same thing for the parameter helper that contains all of the face parameters. So what I'll do is I'll make it part of A2F, and I'll call that face parameters, enter. And we're going to talk about the provider name in a few minutes, but I'm going to compile this and save this. And now what you're going to notice is that when you select your blueprint, if you go, you'll see here you have a new category called A2F, and then you can open it up and you'll see that we have the path to wave. Oh, and I forgot to make sure that the face parameters were editable outside. So save this. And now you'll see that we have the face parameters. So when you're trying to adjust the performance, you can go back in here and you can play with those settings. So for example, if I'm just going to go in player mode, and I'm going to select the blueprint here, and I'm just going to exaggerate, for example, the lower face strength. I'm going to make it like 3 so that we can see. Oh, actually 2 is the maximum, so 2 is going to be pretty strong anyway. So if I do press T.
I am very excited about Audio2Face, facial animation made easy and fun.
All right, so that's the first thing. The other thing that's going to have a big impact is which model you're going to use for your character. So if you look at the provider name, now we are set to Claire, but when we switch from Claire to Mark to James, the performance will be different. We want to be able to switch that. So for that, what we can do is I'm going to go back to content here. I'm going to right click and go into blueprint. And there's a thing here called enumeration. I'm going to create that, and I'm going to call that, I don't know, A2F underscore models. And I'm going to double click to edit it. The description will be A2F underscore models. And I'm going to add an enumerator, and I'm going to go back to the page where I've got my the provider names. I'm going to copy Claire. That's going to be the first one, and I'm going to put that in the description as well. Add a new enumerator. I'm going to call this one Mark, M-A-R-K, and same thing here. Oops, M-A-R-K, and the last one, James. And I'm going to copy this, and James. So if I do save this, now what I can do is use this inside of the blueprint. So to use this, I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to call this one A2F actor, so that it's meaningful to, A2F underscore rename actor, so that it's meaningful outside of, instead of, I'm going to go in the, actually, you don't see it because it's outside of the screen, but I'm going to go in enum here. I'm going to see that A2F model enumeration is available. I'm going to make it available outside, and now I will be able to see it, and I'm going to put that in the A2F category. And right now it doesn't do much, but what we'll do, the way that we use an enumeration like this, you could have the intuition of saying I'm going to provide this as the input here for the provider name, but it's not going to work. So let me show you how it can work. So the first thing you need is to create a set variable. Actually, what I'm going to do is make it simple. I'm going to bring that in, and I'm going to say set. So we are going to set the provider name based on the which element of the enumeration is selected. So if I go back to my, I know it's a bit of work, but you'll get the idea after. So provider name here will be, so what I'm doing is I'm taking the provider name variable, and I'm going to set this to Claire. I'm going to copy this and paste it, set it to Mark, and then Do the same here. And for James. So I'm setting the variable, and I'm going to execute these set variable only based on the value of the enumeration called A2F actor. So if I do need that variable in, I'm going to get that variable, and from there there's an event called switch based on this variable, and you see that depending on which one is selected, it's going to execute either one of those. So I'll say if it's Claire, execute Claire. If it's Mark, execute Mark. And if it's James, execute James. Then the output of all those three will be going in the rest of the flow. And the T will connect to this. And now, based on which value is selected in the enumeration, it's going to be either one of those models that's going to be executed. So if I do compile and save, and I make sure that A2F actor is visible outside, yeah, that's good. So now if I look at my A2F interface, I will be able to choose which actor, either Claire, Mark, or James, and I'll be able to switch very quickly. So if I just go in player mode, and I'm going to try with James, and then press T.
I am very excited about Audio2Face, facial animation made easy and fun.
So that's about it. It covers a lot. We've done initial setup A2F. We've done some iteration setup as well. So start playing with it and see what you can do. And I hope you enjoy and have fun.